our fourth and final video of our Aunt Betty's Story series of 4 videos. My name is Monica Robinson, and my roots are in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia. This 4th video takes us to Bethany's life in the North. As she did in Virginia, she inspired many with her strong faith and love of family. We gathered together a group of readers for these videos. These readers are related to Bethany Veney. Several are direct descendants, and several others are related to her through her 2 husbands, Jerry Ficklin and Frank Veney. This video is funded by a generous donation from the Virginia Humanities and from the Jerome L. Green Foundation, as recommended by Karen Brooks Hopkins, whose donation is in memory of Sister Judy Brown.
The feelings with which I entered my northern home, 22 Charles Field Street, Providence, Rhode Island, on a bright, pleasant morning in August 1858, came to be more easily fancied than described. A new life had come to me. I was in a land where, by its laws, I had the same right to myself that any other woman had. No jailer could take me to prison and sell me at an auction to the highest bidder. My boy was my own, and no one could take him from me. But I had left behind me everyone I had ever known. I did not forget the dreadful hardships I had endured, and yet somehow I did not think of them with half the bitterness with which I had endured them. I was a stranger in a strange land, and it was no wonder, perhaps, that a dreadful loneliness and homesickness came over me. The family was just rising when Mr. Adams, with his night key, opened the door and showed me the way to the sitting room, and then went to find his wife. I had only a moment to look about me when the girl from the kitchen came in a very friendly manner, asked me to go there with her. Then in a few minutes more, Mrs. Adams came, and in her smiling motherly way, held out her hand to me, saying, "Good morning, Betty." She met me as if I were an old acquaintance. At any rate, she made me feel that I was with friends. It was not easy at first to accommodate myself to the new surroundings. In the Southern kitchen under slave rule, there was little thought of convenience or economy. Here I found all sorts of Yankee inventions and improvements to make work easy and pleasant. There were dishes and pans of every description, clean and distinct cloths for all purposes, brushes and brooms for different uses. I couldn't help feeling bewildered sometimes at the different in so many ways, and for a moment wished myself back in old Virginia with my own people, and I very, very often longed to see the old familiar faces and hear the old sounds, but never could I forget to be grateful for my escape from a system under which I had suffered so much.
For a while after my coming north, I was able to hear occasionally from the old home, but after the trouble over John Brown, all communication was at an end. In the meantime, I made acquaintances among both white and colored people who were interested in my history and glad to hear me. I had been there only about 3 months when my little Joe sickened and died, and this was a great affliction to me. After this, Mr. Adams removed his family to Worcester, Mass., and I went with them. From business considerations, his stay was shortened, and he returned to Providence. I liked the friends and I had made in Worcester, and decided to cast in my lot with them. I had joined the Park Street Methodist Church and was treated with such kind consideration by the brothers and sisters there that I was at home with them, and as I could find all work I was able to do, I was very comfortable in many ways. When at last the war was over, my wish to go back revived. I had saved some money, and as soon as it was deemed safe by my friends, I undertook the journey. I purchased my tickets, taking me to Culpeper Courthouse via railroad, and all passed off well.
After visiting about for 6 or 7 weeks, I turned my face again to the north, my daughter, her husband, and child coming with me. 3 times since I have made the same journey, bringing back with me from time to time, in all, 16 of my relatives, and I've encountered many interesting incidents. I've always found someone, sometimes a policeman, sometimes a simple woman or a boy, ready and willing to help me in every emergency when I had need. I have great reason to speak well of my fellow men and to be most thankful to the overruling providence that brought me out of the house of bondage. I forget the exact date, but one day I was busy with my work at home when a message came to me from Mrs. Warner asking me to come to her. I went at once, and on being shown into her presence, I found her engaged in conversation with my old master, David McCoy. He who had taken Jerry away from me and afterwards had sent me to Richmond to be sold. But all was changed now. He was not even Master McCoy. He was Mr. McKay. He put out his hand and he said, "How gee?" Not exactly, perhaps, as a reconstructed man, but as one who had at last learned something from the logic of events, of the difference in our relations to each other. After a friendly interchange of inquiry, he invited me to call on him at the Waverly House, where he was stopping. Accordingly, the next day I inquired at the Waverly House for Mr. McKay of Virginia, and a servant showed me to his room. He welcomed me very cordially this time, and after a long talk, and I arose to come away, I asked him to dine with me the next day. He expressed much satisfaction, and at the appointed hour made his appearance. I prepared such a dinner as I thought he would enjoy and was glad to find I had not been mistaken in my selections. On rising to go, he turned to me and he said, "Aunt Betty, when you came down south, you wore a nice pair of kid gloves with fur around their wrists. Can you tell me where you bought them and what they cost?" I told him I'd gladly go with him and try to find such, but as Dr. Warner had given me mine, I did not know their price. So together we looked. We looked through the different stores and at last succeeded in finding a pair that suited him. And I had the pleasure of paying for them and then presenting them to him as a remembrance of his visit to the North, as well as of me. I never saw him again, for it was not long after he died.
My life in the North as in the South has been full of experiences, both sad and joyful. 16 years ago this winter, I was set for to the dying bed of Mrs. Adams. The 12th month is sacredly past since I was again called to assist in the care of Mr. Adams. As he lingered week after week, only half conscious of life, and then passed away. His recognition of my poor service gladdens me now, for I can never express the satisfaction it gave me to minister to his wants. For I was a stranger and he took me in. I had fallen amongst thieves and he had rescued me. I have spoken of the kindness of my Methodist brothers and sisters. To tell the half of it would be impossible. One thing, however, I must not omit. It is this ongoing to Sterling last summer, the camp meeting I found on the spot where I had been accustomed to pitch my tent, a nice wooden building awaited for my occupation. The surprise was so great to me, I am afraid I did not express the gratitude I really felt. and this is only one of the many ways in which I have tasted the loving kindness of my friends and found it like that of an infinite Father. Oh, how free. I am now a 74 years old of age, the owner and occupant of a small house at 21 Tuff Street, Worcester, Mass. My daughter and family near me in an adjoining house, also owned by me. I have 3 grandchildren living. My back is not so straight nor so strong. My sight is not so clear, nor my limbs so nimble as they once were. But I am still ready and glad to do whatever so my hand findeth to do, waiting only for the call to come up higher. Bethany, Veney.
We hope you enjoyed our final video of 4 of Aunt Betty's story. We want to thank all of our readers, especially Bethany's descendants, who traveled from all parts of the country to join us in the making of these videos. Special thanks to the gifted and talented singers whose voices enhance Bethany's story. This video is funded by a generous donation from the Virginia Humanities and from the Jerome L. Green Foundation, as recommended by Karen Brooks Hopkins, whose donation is in memory of Sister Judy Brown. Special thanks to Reverend Brown for participating in the celebration of Bethany Veney and his wife of 66 years, Sister Judy Brown. Sister Brown was an active supporter of our programs since we began. She is missed. Thank you for tuning in. Good night.